Hello everyone. So in this video I am going to explain instead of versus after trigger. So what is instead of? Instead of means instead of executing any DDL or DML or any logon event on database, trigger will execute. And after trigger means the trigger will execute after completion or execution of DML, DDL and logon event in database. So this is the simple definition. So let's see one by one. So let's start with DML trigger. So this is the syntax for DML trigger. Create trigger. We can specify the schema, then trigger name, on which table we want to create a DML trigger, and then either for after instead of, like which trigger we want to create, either after trigger or instead of trigger, then on which DML event like insert, update, delete. Okay, and then after that we can give a SQL statement, like we can describe a statement that should be execute after or instead of any DML event. So let's see, this is the syntax to drop trigger. Now I will show you the practically SQL insert trigger. So this is for instead of insert. So in this what will happen when I will, let me explain with example. So I am going to create a trigger on employee table. Okay, so let me take the data correct database. So I am going to create a trigger, okay, on employee table. Okay, and let's see the definition. Create trigger, trigger name on employee means on employee table I am going to create. So which type of trigger? Instead of trigger. Instead of what? Insert. So when we insert, when we try to insert data on employee table, then instead of executing a insert statement for that table, trigger will execute. Table like insertion will not happen, but trigger will execute because I am using here instead of insert. Let's see, I am going to create a trigger. So I have already one trigger created. So let me drop this trigger. Drop trigger, trigger name. Drop trigger, trigger name. So now I have dropped this trigger. Now again I am going to recreate the trigger. So let's see first syntax. So mm, yeah, so why I am going to create this instead of trigger? Just assume while inserting, maybe I can add some unnecessary data, like I can add salary is null, I can add name value is null while inserting the data. Okay, so I want to prevent this thing, like I don't want to add salary as a null and I don't want to add name as a null, like name value null and salary value null. So what I will do, I will create one trigger. So what trigger will do, like whenever I will try to insert the value, so instead of inserting the value, trigger will execute, and in that trigger I will check whether the name is null or not. If it is null, then I will set the null value from my side. Then if again it will check salary. If salary is null, then I will check default salary 10,000 because I know minimum salary is 10,000 in that particular organization. This is just assumption. Okay, and select insert into employee table this all value. Okay, and this all value is coming from inserted. So what is inserted? Inserted, like when we create a trigger on table. Okay, and after creating a trigger on table based on insert statement. So whenever we try to insert some data in a table, what will happen, that all insertion value will be stored in one default table, like that table is already created by database engine, inserted table. So just example, I am going to insert data into employee table, and I have created a trigger on employee table uh, for insert DML statement. So what will happen, that all entry will store in inserted table by default by database engine. Okay, so let me execute this trigger. So I have executed this trigger, and now I am going to insert the value. Let me insert the value. Insert into employee. Okay, ID no need to insert. Employee, and then values. So name I am giving null. Okay, now department, let's give IT. Then salary, again I am giving null. Okay, now city we can give anything. Let's give Bengaluru. Now state should be manager, anything we can give. Now state value, like we can miss this value, these are not required column. Okay, now I am going to insert this value, and I have created a instead of trigger on this table. So what will happen, instead of inserting data here, instead of inserting data in this employee table, trigger will execute first, and data insertion will not happen through this insert statement, because I have created an insert instead of insert trigger. Okay, so instead of inserting data into employee table, the trigger will execute. Okay, and when the trigger will execute, trigger will take all the names, all the value that I try to insert using this statement. In inserted statement, like all this value will stored in inserted table, but data will not store in employee table, because I have created a instead of insert trigger on this table. So what does it mean? Like when I create instead of insert on any of the table, then the after doing this, when we try to insert data in table, then data will not store in that table, data will only store in inserted table, and that this table creates by database engine by default. Okay, and then trigger will execute. So when the trigger will execute, we can see in the triggers statement, we will store all the value in a variable from inserted statement. Okay, after storing the value in a variable, we will check for name and salary. If it is null, then we will give value from our side, and then we will try to, then after that in the same statement we can execute insert statement inside trigger. So let's see. So here I am giving null value for name and null value for salary. So this two null value will not insert in employee table, only missing and this 10,000 will insert. Let's see. We can see what got inserted. Name missing, salary 10,000 got inserted. Okay, now we can check the table also. Select star from employee. So let's see the last value. We can see this one got inserted. Missing department ID, salary 10,000, GDDH. So I have given here GDDH Bangalore. So data has not inserted using this statement. Data was inserted using this statement, and for name and salary value we get from these two statements. So this is all about instead of trigger using DML insert statement. In the next video I will explain another statement using another DML statement. Sorry, in the next video I will explain after insert. Like now I have explained instead of. Now in the next video I will explain after insert. Means in this what will happen, trigger will execute after completion of this insert statement. So in this in the instead of, trigger has executed before this, but when I create instead of after insert, then trigger will execute after completion of this insert statement. Thank you.